Good afternoon, everyone. Hope things are well. One player through the door. Anthony Elanga has now completed his medical at Newcastle United. Done, dusted, nothing to worry about. Everything has went well. It is simply us waiting to see when our media team decides to announce it on our social media pages, especially for our media team. Interviews, medical, photographs, they've got to get all that covered. They've got to then edit the content, make sure the content is suitable to go out. And of course, our media team likes to delay it a little bit to build up the anticipation on social media. So all of us are sitting here on the edge of our seat when it gets finally announced. It'll get the biggest and loudest possible response, which of course benefits us on social media and just helps you guys enjoy the hype. But one through the door, who is next? We're here on this video today to get to the bottom of that. Positive and surprising news regarding Newcastle over the past 24 hours. So, of course, on the channel, we're here to get through it all. If you enjoy the content, make sure to get down there, hit that subscribe button. It is free to do so. 55% of you watch this video are not subscribed, so make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming content. Plenty to get into, and 1 week already from going to Scotland to see our first pre-season game. So make sure you stick around so you get to see it all. Let's start off with the surprising news. Sean Longstaff bid has been rejected by Leeds. Third bid already during the summer transfer window. £12 million has been turned down from Newcastle. This is a player who has already stated to journalists that Newcastle should be selling him in this summer for PSR reasons. A player who's actually came out and said, sell me Newcastle so we can be covered for PSR next summer. It's not a secret he wants first team football and he's just not getting that anymore at Newcastle. So Longstaff has now decided that it's the correct time for him to leave. Newcastle still feels like £12 million is just not enough money for him. And when you look at Newcastle and the bid that's been sent over from Leeds, I can understand why Newcastle has turned it down now. I actually think it's a respectable bid. I don't think it's a bad bid from Leeds. In fact, £12 million, yes, I think Longstaff's value is more than £12 million. But the issue being is that he's not a player in demand. There's not going to be many teams that are going to be throwing high bids in there or even having a bidding war over Longstaff. He's just not an attractable player, even though he is a lad in his middle 20s, English midfielder with Champions League experience. Longstaff does have value, but he's not a player that's going to have a lot of demand. So the £12 million bid from Leeds is still £12 million more than what Newcastle would get next summer. But the fact that we have turned it down, in my opinion, this is still a player that will leave this summer. The fact that the player themselves has said that I want first team football elsewhere, you're just not going to keep a hold of him. So Newcastle feels like they'll get more money for Longstaff. So fair enough. I've seen a lot of negative response from Newcastle fans on social media, but listen, the club feels like £12 million is not enough. I don't mind if the club feels like they will get more money. I'm confident we will get more money for them. And although I think this is a good bid from Leeds, Newcastle clearly thinks they can do better. So yeah, Leeds have already learned the hard lesson in the Premier League that teams are not going to help them out. Newcastle is going to look to get as much money as possible from whoever it may be that wants to buy Sean Longstaff. I can understand why, because I think he is worth more than £12 million, although I was still happy with the £12 million bid that Leeds sent. I still think Sean Longstaff will leave Newcastle this summer, but clearly the club thinks they'll get more money for him. So who's it going to be and how much are they going to pay? I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to hear what you guys think about this current situation. As for players who have been linked with Newcastle, Keith Downey has stated on social media that Newcastle is targeting a striker next. Fabrizio Romano yesterday actually claimed that Hugo Ekitike is once again on Newcastle United's transfer list of players we want to bring in. Don't get me started on Ekitike now. As a player, quality, very good up-and-coming talent who, to be fair, Newcastle, of course, a couple of years back attempted to bring him in. It didn't happen at the time, and he has progressed incredibly well. It is one of those strikers out there that a lot of teams are going to want to bring in. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm still quite ticked off over how things worked out a couple of years ago now. I don't know how much you remember on social media, but essentially, him and his agent just took the absolute mick out of Newcastle. At the time, Newcastle were quite close to bringing Ekitike in. And then on social media, on his Instagram page, he's got his agent coming out with Instagram stories, just mocking the transfer situation with Newcastle. Clearly not taking it seriously. In my opinion, probably using Newcastle somewhat to get his client a much better deal. Now, I get that an agent will do that, but ultimately Newcastle got done dirty a little bit, and they clearly didn't take the club seriously. So when you look at this potential option again, I mean, for one, you had this issue of Watkins and Wissa already, but who is going to join Newcastle as a number 2 striker? You're seeing this with top-level strikers over the years. Harry Kane being quite a famous one at Tottenham, but who in their right mind will join Newcastle as a number 2? You basically need a striker that is good enough to be at Newcastle, but also not good enough so they can be behind Isak. João Pedro probably seemed like the most realistic one because you aren't necessarily signing João Pedro as a striker, even though he is a striker. You also sign him as a number 10. So Eddie Howe has the transitional option of being able to change the formation while you have a striker signing coming in. You have someone that can play in the midfield. So Newcastle sign a versatile player who can do that. And I feel like, let's say, for example, Newcastle signs a striker now but can play out wide, then you've got an option straight away that could start on the left, but can also be a striker behind Isak. So you've got a player that could start alongside Isak while being an option behind him. That's probably the best way of going around this situation because you're just not going to sign a player out there that's going to sit in the bench. It's not happening. So you either got to sign a number 10 who can play up front or a striker who can play out wide or somewhere else in the pitch. Versatility is probably the best way of getting around this, unless you want to see DCL come to Newcastle, which I don't think many Newcastle fans do on social media. Going away from attacking options, of course, Georgio Scavlini has been heavily linked to Newcastle. It has now been stated from journalists that £52 million is the valuation that it would cost to bring Scalani into Newcastle. £52 million for someone who has previous shoulder issues while also having a torn ACL just seems to be a bit on the steep end for me now. He is a talented player, incredibly young, got a lot of potential and wants to play Premier League football. 52 million is just too much now. I know when you look at Livermore, for example, that's someone that's came to Newcastle off the back of an ACL injury and has done wonders for us and is worth way more than £52 million now, but it's still quite a big gamble from someone who's just came off an ACL injury now. I just don't think £52 million is necessarily the correct amount, considering the fact that Mark Gay, I reckon around the £60 million mark would bring him in. That's a fit, experienced Premier League centre-half who also has the credentials behind him where you just know he will succeed in the Premier League. Whereas Scalani, although I think he will succeed in the Premier League, again, young, doesn't have that experience. You just got a few question marks around him. So for me, £52 million is just way too much. But, of course, as you've seen in this transfer window, if Newcastle can get that valuation down and if we can find a compromise, then I feel like this is a sign Newcastle should be looking at. But again, as it's been linked heavily throughout this summer, Newcastle, we know wants a player like Scalani to come in. So we'll see whether or not we can land this player in. But for me, £52 million, in my opinion, is just a bit on the steep end for him. Coming out from this video, I don't know what it's been on YouTube, but over the past couple of days, it's been a surprising amount of videos from you talking neutral fans, sport media pages, where there's just a lot of negative videos surrounding Newcastle. For example, I mean, we're not even going to give this guy the time of day because he doesn't deserve it. But even going away from that individual, there's quite a few videos like this. Of course, TalkSport. I mean, we might as well talk about TalkSport because they always do crap like this. But they talk about Newcastle never going to win the Premier League title anyhow. Who at Newcastle has said we are wanting to win the Premier League title? We've had the best season in our club history in 70 years. It's our best season in 70 years, and you get negative reports like this on social media. I mean, you look at different fan channels out there, they're just talking down on Newcastle's window. We're just signing Langa. Newcastle are now pushing out there to get more players in. I just don't get this, I guess, this reactionary opinion that's coming out here. It's just based on how Newcastle have been the last couple of weeks. It's just a lot of noise for the sake of being noisy. I know the point of these sort of videos is to get me and you reacting and commenting on them because, of course, in a financial point of view, that's how these individuals make money. But yeah, I just never understand the point of this because Newcastle fans obviously aren't going to like these videos. And, of course, once we've seen someone like this do a video once, you're not going to go back and watch them again. It's, although on a short-term basis, these individuals are going to profit and they're going to benefit from it. Long-term, you're almost alienating the Newcastle fans because they're just not going to tune in and to watch what is clearly biased and clearly negative content about our football club. So, yeah, I'm not going to spend loads of time in this video talking about it because ultimately I couldn't care less. But again, all you guys in social media, if you ever see a video like this, I know I'm highlighting it now, but I don't actually watch these videos. They're not benefiting financially from me. Just don't give them the time of day. Don't give them the attention, because, of course, if you go into these videos and then start put negative comments in there, you're giving these what they want, you're giving them the attention, which would then encourage them to do further videos like this and to continue being biased against Newcastle. There's some individuals I've called out in the past, but again, you know who these people are. They're going to keep spouting utter rubbish about this football club. I'm very happy where Newcastle are now. I'm excited and I can't wait to see what we do next, but I've been pleased so far. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. Newcastle, yes, might be taking a little longer than expecting the transfer window, and while we haven't signed all of our transfer targets. What football club does sign all their transfer targets? Clubs are always going to lose out on players, and while we have lost out on a couple of big players in this window, it happens to any club, so I've got no issue. Newcastle have a big list of targets I want to get. They'll bring some players in, already one for the door, and I'm looking forward to see what we can do next. But all of these, you can do one, is my message coming out from this video. But anyway, hope you have enjoyed watching. Let me know your opinions down below. Not an awful lot of transfer news today. A lot more came out yesterday. But of course, slowly building up to get the next player in. I'm pleased with what I've seen in social media. I'm intrigued to see what we do next, because at the minute, I'm still not sure who we're going to say, to be honest. There's a lot of names that have been linked, but what ones do Newcastle actually get a agreed fee for? Can't wait to see who. But take care. Let me know your opinions down below. And of course, we will see you all in the next one.